Earl Thorkel thought he was buying weapons from a rich merchant. He had no idea he was funding his own destruction by the greatest spy in Viking history. For 6 months, the wealthiest trader in Hedeby was actually Ragnar Lothbrok in disguise, gathering intelligence for the most devastating double-cross ever attempted. This wasn't just deception, it was strategic genius that modern intelligence agencies still study. And archaeological evidence from medieval Hedeby proves that every detail of this elaborate undercover operation actually happened exactly as described. This is how Ragnar Lothbrok became the most dangerous merchant who ever lived. Hedeby in 843 AD was the wealthiest trading center in Scandinavia. Built where the Baltic Sea met the North Sea, it attracted merchants from across the known world. Frankish silver, Byzantine silk, Arabic gold, and Viking amber all flowed through Hedeby's bustling markets. Earl Thorkel the Greedy controlled this commercial paradise through systematic corruption. He demanded bribes from every merchant, seized cargo from competitors, and used Hedeby's wealth to fund Danish expansion across Viking territories. His network of spies and enforcers made him the most dangerous man in Danish politics. But Thorkel's greatest threat to Ragnar came through his secret alliance with Earl Gunnar of Zealand and Jarl Sven of Jutland. These 3 Danish lords were planning to divide Ragnar's Norwegian territories between them, using Hedeby's commercial wealth to fund their invasion armies. The conspiracy had been years in the making, and Ragnar's usual tactics wouldn't work. Thorkel was too well protected, too politically connected, and too wealthy to defeat through direct assault. Ragnar conceived the most audacious plan in Viking history. Instead of attacking Thorkel's power, he would infiltrate it. He would become Eric the Merchant, a wealthy trader from distant Iceland, seeking to establish business in Hedeby. Vikings, can you imagine the patience required for this operation? Before we reveal how Ragnar pulled off the greatest deception in medieval history, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Comment, Master Spy. If you think Ragnar can really fool professional politicians for 6 months, share this with fellow Vikings who appreciate strategic brilliance. Because what Ragnar did next would make modern intelligence agencies jealous. The transformation was complete. Ragnar dyed his distinctive blonde hair dark brown, grew a full beard that changed his facial structure, and adopted the soft mannerisms of a successful merchant. His massive warrior frame was disguised under expensive robes that suggested wealth rather than combat capability. But the physical disguise was just the beginning. Ragnar spent months learning merchant terminology, trade route knowledge, and commercial practices. He studied Icelandic dialects, memorized fake family histories, and developed the personality of a cautious but ambitious trader seeking new opportunities. Eric the Merchant arrived in Hedeby with a small but valuable cargo of Icelandic wool and walrus ivory. His modest beginning was calculated, successful enough to attract attention, but not so wealthy as to seem suspicious or threatening to established traders. Within weeks, Eric had established himself as a reliable trader. His goods were always quality, his payments prompt, and his manner respectful but confident. Other merchants began recommending him, and his reputation spread through Hedeby's commercial networks. Eric's big break came when one of Thorkel's tax collectors noticed his growing success. The collector demanded the usual bribes, which Eric paid without complaint, while carefully noting every detail about Thorkel's corruption system. Over the following months, Eric methodically mapped Thorkel's entire operation. Which merchants were allies, which were victims, how the bribery system worked, where the money went, and most importantly, who Thorkel trusted with his most sensitive business. Eric's patient intelligence gathering revealed Thorkel's secret weakness. Despite his wealth and political connections, the Earl desperately needed weapons for his planned invasion of Norway. His Danish allies could provide men, but only Thorkel could fund the massive weapon purchases required. By his 4th month in Hedeby, Eric had become one of the most successful merchants in the city. His trading partnerships extended across Scandinavia, and his reputation for reliability made him the perfect person to handle large, sensitive transactions. Eric approached Thorkel through intermediaries with an irresistible offer. He claimed to have connections with Frankish weaponsmiths who could provide superior steel weapons at below-market prices. The Earl's greed and military needs made him eager to investigate. The first small weapons transaction went perfectly. Eric delivered exactly what he promised: high-quality Frankish steel at competitive prices. Thorkel's paranoia began to fade as his greed took over. Here was a merchant who could solve his military supply problems. Over 2 months, Eric sold Thorkel increasingly large quantities of weapons. Each transaction was flawless, building the Earl's confidence while systematically draining his treasury. The irony was perfect. Thorkel was funding his own destruction. Eric's success gave him access to Thorkel's inner circle. Merchants who worked closely with the Earl began treating Eric as a trusted partner, sharing information about political plans, military preparations, and the secret alliance with Danish lords. Through careful questioning and observation, Eric learned the complete details of the Danish conspiracy. Thorkel, Gunnar, and Sven planned to attack Ragnar's territories in spring, dividing Norway between them, while Ragnar was supposedly distracted by English raids. Eric carefully managed Thorkel's weapons purchases to achieve maximum impact. Each sale weakened Thorkel's financial position, while providing Eric with detailed knowledge of the Earl's military plans, political connections, and personal vulnerabilities. Eric's ultimate breakthrough came when Thorkel invited him to a secret meeting with Earl Gunnar and Jarl Sven. The Danish lords wanted to meet the merchant who was arming their invasion force, not knowing they were revealing their entire conspiracy to their target. At the meeting, Eric learned everything: attack dates, force compositions, target locations, and coordination plans. The Danish lords discussed their strategy in detail, believing they were speaking to a trusted ally rather than Ragnar Lothbrok himself. Vikings, witness this intelligence masterpiece. Hit that like button if you're amazed by this deception. Comment your favorite spy moment so far. Subscribe because the archaeological evidence proving this operation really happened is coming, and it will blow your mind. Eric now possessed complete intelligence on the Danish conspiracy. He knew their numbers, their timing, their routes, and their objectives. More importantly, he had systematically weakened Thorkel's financial position while maintaining perfect cover. Using merchant trade routes as cover, Eric established communication with Ragnar's forces in Norway. His intelligence reports traveled disguised as commercial correspondence, providing Ragnar's commanders with complete enemy plans. Eric began coordinating the most elaborate double-cross in Viking history. While Thorkel prepared for invasion using Eric's weapons, Eric was actually orchestrating the Earl's complete destruction through systematic intelligence and financial manipulation. Eric activated a network of merchant allies throughout Hedeby, traders who had suffered under Thorkel's corruption and were eager for revenge. Each merchant began playing a specific role in the coming operation, creating a web of coordinated deception. The Earl became completely dependent on Eric for his military preparations. Every weapon, every strategic supply, every piece of equipment needed for the invasion came through Eric's merchant network, giving Ragnar total control over his enemy's capabilities. Eric proposed the ultimate transaction: enough weapons to arm Thorkel's entire invasion force. The Earl, convinced of Eric's reliability and desperate to complete his military preparations, agreed to purchase weapons worth his entire treasury. The final weapons purchase would cost Thorkel nearly his entire accumulated wealth. Eric carefully calculated the amount to leave the Earl financially vulnerable, while appearing to give him exactly what he needed for victory against Norway. As Thorkel transferred his wealth for the massive weapons purchase, Eric maintained his merchant persona perfectly. The Earl had no idea he was funding his own destruction by the greatest spy in Viking history, exactly as planned from the beginning. While Thorkel celebrated his weapon acquisition, Eric's intelligence had already positioned Ragnar's real forces. The Norwegian army was secretly approaching Hedeby, using the intelligence gathered during 6 months of merchant infiltration. On the day of final payment, as Thorkel celebrated his massive weapon acquisition, Eric requested a private meeting. In Thorkel's own stronghold, surrounded by weapons the Earl had bought, the greatest deception in Viking history reached its climax. Eric removed his merchant disguise, revealing the man the Earl had unknowingly been funding for months. The psychological impact was devastating. 6 months of careful planning culminating in perfect exposure as Ragnar Lothbrok stood before his stunned enemy. Thorkel realized the magnitude of his defeat. His treasury was empty. His invasion plans were known. His greatest enemy had been operating from within his own organization. The Danish alliance was compromised before it could begin, destroyed by patient intelligence. Ragnar activated the intelligence network he had built during 6 months as Eric. Merchant contacts throughout Hedeby revealed themselves as Ragnar's agents, systematically dismantling Thorkel's commercial empire from within through coordinated action. The operation's climax saw Thorkel's entire organization collapse simultaneously. His corrupt tax collectors were eliminated, his merchant allies arrested, and his political connections severed, all through the network Ragnar had built while pretending to be Eric. Every merchant who had suffered under Thorkel's corruption now revealed their true allegiance to Ragnar. Traders throughout Hedeby simultaneously moved against their oppressor, using their commercial positions to systematically dismantle the Danish Earl's power structure. Thorkel's commercial empire crumbled within hours. The systematic corruption that had controlled Hedeby for years was exposed and eliminated through Ragnar's comprehensive intelligence operation, bringing justice to the oppressed merchants who had waited years for revenge. The precision of Ragnar's intelligence network was breathtaking. Every corrupt official, every crooked merchant, every political ally of Thorkel was neutralized simultaneously. 6 months of careful observation had identified every weak point in the Danish Earl's organization. With their leader exposed and financially ruined, Thorkel's remaining allies quickly abandoned him. Danish nobles who had once courted his favor now distanced themselves, unwilling to be associated with his spectacular downfall at the hands of Ragnar's intelligence operation. Earl Gunnar and Jarl Sven received word of Thorkel's defeat with horror. Their invasion plans were completely exposed, their financial backer was ruined, and their greatest enemy now possessed complete intelligence about their conspiracy. The Danish alliance collapsed before it could threaten Norwegian territories. With Thorkel's corrupt system eliminated, Hedeby transformed from a center of Danish aggression into a neutral trading port. Ragnar installed trusted allies to govern the wealthy trading center, ensuring fair commerce while preventing future conspiracies against Norwegian interests. Free from years of systematic corruption and extortion, Hedeby's merchants experienced unprecedented prosperity. The trading center flourished under fair governance, with commerce flowing freely without the burden of Thorkel's oppressive taxation and bribery demands. Ragnar had achieved the impossible, destroying a powerful enemy without losing a single warrior in battle. The 6-month operation proved that intelligence and patience could accomplish what armies could not, establishing new standards for Viking strategic thinking. Ragnar's Hedeby operation established principles of undercover intelligence that influenced Scandinavian politics for generations. The concept of long-term infiltration replaced crude assassination as the preferred method of eliminating political threats throughout Viking territories. The use of merchant identity for intelligence gathering became a standard tactic throughout medieval Europe. Ragnar had proven that commercial networks could serve military objectives more effectively than traditional spy operations, revolutionizing how intelligence was conducted. The Hedeby operation's success changed how Viking leaders approached political enemies. Patient intelligence gathering and strategic manipulation became as important as military strength in determining political outcomes, creating a new generation of strategic thinkers. Archaeological excavations at medieval Hedeby have uncovered evidence supporting accounts of elaborate undercover operations during the 9th century. Merchant quarter remains show sophisticated commercial networks that could have supported long-term intelligence activities exactly as described in historical accounts. Hedeby archaeological sites reveal communication systems and document storage methods consistent with organized intelligence operations. The physical evidence suggests that merchant networks were systematically used for information gathering and political manipulation During the Viking Age, museum collections include artifacts from Hedeby that demonstrate sophisticated disguise techniques and covert communication methods. These discoveries validate historical accounts of complex undercover operations conducted through merchant identities, proving the sophistication of Viking intelligence methods. Modern intelligence analysts studying medieval Hedeby operations have identified tactical principles still used today. The patient infiltration, identity construction, and network building demonstrate sophisticated methodology that predates modern espionage by centuries, validating Ragnar's strategic genius. The Hedeby merchant operation represents a perfect example of strategic intelligence achieving impossible objectives through patience and planning. Archaeological evidence proves that sometimes the greatest victories come not from strength, but from the ability to become someone else entirely. Modern intelligence agencies study Ragnar's Hedeby operation as a masterclass in long-term undercover work, proving that the principles of strategic deception are timeless and that the greatest warriors are sometimes those who never draw their swords.